This is Kamala, and she is now in Philadelphia. And you can see Nick Sorter, our friend, posted this one and said she's looking a little bit nervous over there. And you know how that, of course, you got to adjust your hair and all that. But when you do it, right when the press comes out like this, makes you feel like you're hiding, right? Like you're doing one of these things like, oh, I got to get off this airplane, but I don't want them to see me. Do we have that Pentagon invisibility cloak? Can I borrow that? No, that's top secret, Kamala. You can't borrow that. She's, all right, let me just try this. And I think it's a subliminal thing, right? It could be her adjusting her hair, but it certainly feels like there's a lot of that going on from her, kind of waving her hand. And this is her walking off, avoiding the press all the time. She answering any questions? Here's the question.
Madam Vice President, are you worried about Trump?
Yeah, she's freaked. It's all that. Totally freaked because she's incompetent. The person who's going to be handling the debate tonight is this woman, Lindsay Davis. Don't you dare include a D in the Lindsay name, okay? If you do, that's bigotry. But she's going to be here saying that she's going to host a free and fair debate or something. David Muir, both of these people hate Trump, right? They don't communicate it as aggressively, let's say, as Joe Brzezinski does, but they definitely have disdain for him. And we played clips of them. We usually avoid their clips because they look down their noses at people on ABC. When David Muir hosts his show, it feels like he's talking down to you, like he's too sophisticated for his audience or something. It's a weird vibe. But anyways, they're going to be there tonight. They're going to also recognize David Muir, who hosts the most watched news program in television. Really? World News Tonight. Wow. But they may be less familiar with his co-moderator, Lindsay Davis. How many views is he getting? That's interesting. The most watched news program in television. That's interesting. More than like Waters and more than the Fox News stuff. He's got the #1 show. Is that what they're saying? It's pretty interesting. Now, those who have worked with Davis throughout her career think she's up for the challenge. Martha Raddatz, who's known Davis, says she's amazing. She's going to keep total control. All right. Davis, 46, is the host of the nightly news broadcast. And they're going to be hosting this. From the moment she heard that she would moderate the debate, she has been voraciously ingesting any and all information about the candidates, who oversees the network streaming channel. With such a large viewing audience, 51.3 million viewers watched the first debate in June when Trump took out Joe Biden. That was fun. But she's not thinking about it from exposure. She thinks about it from a capital J journalism part. Oh gosh, it's going to be terrible. On a personal level, this woman said that Davis is uproariously funny and is kind. That's good. Being kind is important. Would bet that humor thing is debatable. But it's an incredible opportunity for her. It's a tremendous responsibility. All right, so you get the picture there. Now, Kamala has been preparing for this for quite some time. We haven't seen or heard from her since that debate or that interview with her companion governor with Dana Bash. But Rick Santorum was out. He was explaining, she's been in the bunker prepping for this thing for quite a while. And what's the deal with that? Everybody does a little bit of debate prep, but is she competent or capable? Why is so much effort being focused on preparing if she's the vice president, if she's the historic candidate who is so competent and capable as they claim she is?
Someone like Tulsi Gabbard on his team, preparing him tonight to help Trump.
It certainly helps him. First off, it's great that he's doing debate prep and that Tulsi is there to, I think, coach him, and if you will, on what Harris is going to be like. And obviously, the point of criminal justice reform, which Donald Trump has actually a very good record on, is something that is another issue that appeals to Black and brown people in particular who have higher rates of incarceration, men in particular. So this is an area of opportunity for Trump to brandish his credentials in an area that would normally be a Democratic stronghold.
Yeah, Senator, the big rule tonight is there will be a microphone muting, just like we saw in the first presidential debate back in June between Trump and Biden.
Even though she tried to change those rules.
Advantage. And there's reports that Harris's team, they're scrambling because they were hoping that they would be able to get the mics unmuted. Then she could hopefully bait him and then do the whole, we always remember her saying, I'm speaking. And so she's not going to be able to do that. Obviously, this will be an advantage to Trump. How do you think that, obviously, this is going to play out? Because, again, this is not going to be like back in 2016.
Yeah, don't underestimate the 5 days of practice. They will be practicing that muted mic in these debate preps, and they'll be practicing all of her answers to every question that conceivably she's going to get. And I'm sure that she's gotten some intel, not of the questions particularly, but
yeah, I bet she
maybe
does.
The subject areas that are going to be covered, and there's ones that are just logical that are going to be put forward. And she'll have prepared answers. She won't be on a teleprompter, but she will have had 5 days to memorize answers, and so that's an advantage to her. And the other thing is, yeah, they won't have the mics open, but there'll be plenty of opportunities during her answer time and rebuttal time to take shots at Trump. There'll be more interaction than there was under Biden, because Biden just simply wasn't present. And
yeah, because Nancy Pelosi put in that little shot into his pre-debate IV. Oh, no, this is the good stuff, Joe. Yeah, this will make you really energetic. She put it in there. It was like Xanax or something. He's just zoned out there on the debate stage. So, yeah, she'll have a bunch of canned answers, but I don't think she's very good at that, to be perfectly honest with you. She should have had a bunch of canned answers with the interview with Dana Bash. That didn't go over that well. And the reason we know that did not go over that well is because the media was saying, she survived. She did fine. Okay, so shut up. Okay, she's already done debates. She doesn't need to do any more. And that is the same participation that we can expect, I think, moving forward. In fact, this is Mr. Coons, Chris Coons, who is the DNC chair, I believe, somebody high up there at the DNC. He's also explaining that, look, I don't know why she's not talking to you guys. Trump's done dozens of interviews. Why is she avoiding the press there, Chris? Any answers on this? Are we going to hear more from her after tonight?
When I asked her whether there was any explanation for how difficult it's been, I don't know how many extemporaneous press briefings former President Trump has had in the last 40 or 45 days, but it's dozens. And we're exactly at zero still for Vice President Harris. And I asked her and she said she's been really busy. But we've seen some crazy stuff in retail outlets and some funny moments and things.
Where she goes to Republican spice shops, anti-Republican spice shops to talk about unity.
Plenty of stuff, but not that. As vice chair or co-chair, of the Harris campaign, were you involved in that decision to basically keep her away from speaking extemporaneously? Senator, what was the thinking
Joe,
there?
as you can well imagine, I'm not her daily scheduler, but I served with her in the Senate. I've worked with her as vice president. I know her to be smart and capable.
Why do it then? Do you have an explanation for why she's been kept under wraps like that? Because it just raises people's suspicions and people really wonder what's the problem.
Look, what I find concerning is that when Donald Trump gives those completely unscripted, long, rambling interviews, the things he talks about are unhinged.
Okay, so it's like Trump has a bad answer every now and then, and they're like, wow, that's terrible. Put your candidate out there. She doesn't say anything. And when she does, she copy and paste from Joe Biden's policies and then says that she's the candidate of change. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, Ted Cruz is facing a very close race in Congress right now and trying to return to the Senate. He is having a run for his money there in Texas. We'll see what Texas does out there. But that he was also out saying, this is crazy. Kamala is not a candidate of change, okay? She's trying to race to the middle. She has the benefit of avoiding a primary, having avoided a primary because their plan was a coup to avoid a primary. They didn't let RFK participate. They sued to stop Jill Stein and RFK and Nicole Shanahan. And now Kamala is going to be this candidate and campaign of change? And the Democrats are so dense that they're not observing the reality? She's the sitting vice president.
What Kamala Harris is trying to do here is really bizarre, which is she's trying to run as the change candidate. She's trying to treat Donald J. Trump like he is the incumbent president. And that's utterly disconnected from reality. She is the current administration. And normally the way VPs run is they say, hey, we did a great job. The president did a great job. Let's continue the successes of the administration I was the VP in. The problem is Biden and Harris, their policy record is a complete train wreck. And so you look at her convention speech, you look at that interview, the entire time she's saying, I would do this to secure the border. So if you would do that, Why don't you do that? You're in charge right now today. And so everything she's saying she would do, the way I would put it is actions speak louder than words. We know what she'll do in the border because she's been border czar for 4 years, and we've had 11.5 million people invade this country because she refuses to enforce the law. We know what she'll do on energy because she and Joe Biden have been in charge for 4 years, and they've waged a war on energy that has driven the cost of gasoline and everything else through the roof. And I hope tomorrow night in the debate that Trump really prosecutes her record versus his record, because on almost every measure, the lives of the American people were much better when Trump was president. We had a Republican Senate and a Republican House than they are now under the Biden-Harris record.
And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that. I think that Kamala might have been a new exciting candidate because nobody really knew who she was. Think about that. A lot of people really have a hard time naming even their governor or their senators, right? Let alone the vice president, the president generally. Who can name the Secretary of State, right? These are difficult things to name unless you are in politics, as we all are here. But there is probably a sizable portion of the Democratic Party who was looking at Kamala like she was a new figure. Now they're learning, oh, wait, she's the vice president. She's already been in charge. And we're going to get to learn from her. She seems like a fake candidate who has no consistency, has shifted her positions, even though she claims her values haven't moved at all. But do they care? Okay, that's the other part of this. Do they care? Do they even value consistency in their candidates? Do they even value values? Is a question that many people are asking now. So, great point from Ted Cruz. And I had an interesting experience speaking about Ted Cruz the other day. I was talking to a new colleague. I think we'll become friends, but we just met. We started talking. And we were exchanging ideas. And he said to me, he said, gosh, it'd be really interesting because I think this guy might be able to actually connect you with Ted Cruz because he's a big donor over there. He goes, gosh, that'd be crazy. He said, do you know that Ted Cruz has a podcast? Totally seriously, right? He doesn't watch the show, obviously. He's like, he has a podcast. It's pretty good. He's like, that'd be crazy if you went on that podcast. And I was like, yeah, that would be crazy if I went on Ted Cruz's podcast because he has a podcast. So it was a super sweet comment and like a great idea. And also, obviously, it would be awesome to have a podcast with Ted Cruz. But it was just funny because we have the inside joke here of always pointing out that Ted Cruz has a podcast because he's always subliminally shilling his podcast. He's like, hey, by the way, I'm here to pass a bill in the Senate to save America. And subscribe to my podcast, by the way. It's available on Apple Podcasts. So it was just a funny conversation. I'm like, oh, he does have a podcast? That's great. Anyways, it was funny. He had no idea, but it was a great conversation, and shout out to that guy.